for you a new design. I designed a new sewing pattern for romantic polo shirts. The original design is for sectioned polo shirts that can look something like this. You can use different colors, printed fabric. You can also use chiffon, for example, for the sleeves like I did for this shirt, or if you prefer just one color, it can look something like this, where I used mesh with these tiny polka dots and it's just unicolor. And the sewing pattern also offers the version that you wouldn't have any sections. The shirt would be of solid pieces. So I have here this one in off-white, which is the one we're gonna create today together. And just to give you an idea of what it would look like in different colors, I have here these two mock-ups, brick red and apple green. The sewing pattern is available in my Etsy shop, link is down below, and if you already came from Etsy, thank you so much for your purchase. I hope you're gonna have fun with this sewing project, and let's jump right into this. These are all the sewing pattern parts. The pattern comes in both US letter and A4 format. Once you downloaded and printed and assembled the pattern in your size and format, it will look something like this. Then you can cut out the individual pattern pieces and jump right into the project. We'll start with the sectioned polo. I'll show you two finished versions first, since it is then easier to follow the tutorial. These are the pattern pieces for the top shirt parts. You want two mirrored front top parts and one full back top part. That will give you something like this. Align the front top parts with the back top part at the shoulders and pin. Sew on a serger or with an overlock stitch on a household sewing machine. And then you should have something that looks like this. Here we have the patterns for the collar and the neckband. Let's start with the collar. For the collar, you will need two pieces. Fortify one or both sides with iron-on fleece if preferred. I recommend the method block fusing, and it goes like this. Cut pieces for the collar big enough to fit the pattern. Fuse it with iron-on fleece first. Then fold the pieces in the middle and place the collar pattern on the fabric like so. Cut both collar sides and you'll have pieces with precisely clean edges. Pin the short sides and the outer edge and sew. Turn the collar to the right side, shape the corners and pin around the outer edge. Sew a line with straight stitch. As a next step, place the collar with the bottom side to the right side of the top parts like so. The top collar side, the one that's going to be visible, is now on the top facing you. Pin it in place and secure it with straight stitch. Now fold the neckband in half along the long side and start pinning it over the collar to the neckline. Fortify the neckband with iron-on fleece first if preferred. Then sew it in with straight stitch. Use elastic yarn if you want the neckline to remain stretchy. Cut back a bit of the seam and fold the neckband over the seam, secure it with pins, and sew close to the seam with straight stitch. Then fold the neckband inside and pin it in place. Sew it in with straight stitch, and it will look something like this. These are the pattern pieces for the front and back bottom parts. Place them on folded fabric to get full pieces. Take the front bottom part and start pinning it to the front top part. I recommend aligning the center of the front top part first and then pinning in the rest of the edge. Sew the parts together. Then fold the seam down and pin in place. Secure with stitch of your choice that will be still stretchy, like for example stretchy zigzag or lightning stitch or straight stitch with elastic yarn. One thing I like doing additionally is adding a few hand stitches to the center of the front top part to secure it. It is optional, but I find that the neckline looks a little bit cleaner this way. Sew the back parts together by using the same method like for the front part. Let's pin the sleeves in place. I like pinning the ends first and then matching the center of the sleeves with the shoulder seams. For this shirt, we will not make folds on the sleeves. We will simply stretch the armhole to the width of the sleeves while sewing them in. Once the sleeves are sewn in this way, it should look something like this. Now we'll turn our work to the wrong side and we will pin the sides and the sleeves like so. Sew the edge on a serger or with overlock stitch. And then it will look something like this from the inside. And here we have it from the right side. Next, take the rectangle for the sleeve cuffs and fold it in half. Now fold it along the long edge in half like so and secure it with a pin. Sew the edge with straight stitch. Then turn the cuff to the right side and prepare the second cuff the same way. Mark the center of the cuffs on the opposite side of the seam with a little snip. And I also like marking the center of the sleeve the same way. So now align the seam and the center of the cuff with the center and the seam of the sleeves first. And then you can add 2 additional pins to divide the edges into quarters. Sew the cuff in by stretching it out. Use serger or overlock stitch. And here's what the finished sleeve will look like once the cuff is sewn in. I recommend checking the width of both cuffs to make sure they are precise before you proceed. So here we have the shirt so far. All that's left is the bottom edge. Fold the edge in by about an inch and sew in place. I used my cover lock, but you can use, for example, stretchy zigzag, 2 lines of straight stitch by using elastic yarn or lightning stitch. Make sure that the bottom remains stretchy. And here we have the finished shirt. At the end, I also decided to add a flower border on the seam between the front parts. You can play with colors and prints for this sectioned shirt. For example, I used the same fabric with print for this red shirt, but I made the sleeves in red and I used the printed fabric for the cuffs. This would be another option. Here I used mesh and lace. The steps were pretty much the same with just a few exceptions, so I will go over the differences. When I had the top parts sewn together, I place the collar, this time inside, with the top side of the collar facing the wrong side of the top parts. So looking on our work from this angle, we see the wrong side of the shirt and the bottom side of the collar is facing up. I pinned the collar in place and I have sewn it in with straight stitch. Then I look lace trimming instead of a neckband, and I placed it over the collar to the wrong side of the shirt like so. I have sewn the trimming in place with straight stitch. I folded it over the seam and pinned it in place like we did with the neckband. I have sewn it in with straight stitch. And then I folded the lace over the right side of the top parts like so, and I pinned it in place. I have sewn it in with stretchy zigzag, but straight stitch would have worked too. Now this is what the top parts looked like when they were finished. I attached the bottom parts and the sleeves. This time I made folds on the sleeves with the help of the pass marks on the sewing pattern. I added the lace that I have used for the neckband also between the seams. For the bottom edge, I used again just the lace. I have sewn it to the bottom edge and folded it downwards, and I have secured it in place with stretchy zigzag. And then the shirt looked like this. I find that combined with my gothic skirt, it is definitely giving Wednesday Addams prom dress vibe. If you're interested in the sewing pattern for this gothic skirt, it's also available in my Etsy shop, link is in the video description. Before we'll continue with the solid shirt, make sure you hydrate. Hydrated sewist is a happy sewist. Now let's make the solid polo. I used cream colored jersey. The sleeves have folds and the neckline has interfacing instead of the neckband. Take the patterns for the front and back top parts and the front and back bottom parts. Align the top parts with the corresponding bottom parts like so, while overlapping the seam allowance at the aligned edge. Fold in the little corner of the top front part seam allowance that goes over the center. Once you placed the now aligned pattern on folded fabric, you will get full pieces that will look something like this. Align the pieces at the shoulders and pin. Sew the front and back parts together. Next, prepare the collar by using the method block fusing like we already did before, so you know how that works by now. Pin both collar sides together, sew and finish just like we did for the sectioned polo. If you want to add a few details, you could, for example, decorate the edge of the collar with some kind of trimming before you'll continue. Now we'll make the neck facing, and these are the sewing pattern parts. Align the facing patterns for the front and back at the shoulder, deducting the seam allowance at the aligned edge to get a single piece. This way you will have only one seam in the back center. Do block fusing if you want to fortify the fabric with iron-on fleece. Place the aligned pieces on folded fabric. Then cut out your facing and pin it at the back. and of course sew it together. Hem the edge on serger or with a dense zigzag. Place the collar with the bottom side to the right side of the shirt. Align the back centers in the back and work your way to the front. Sew the collar in to prevent shifting with straight stitch. You can also use elastic yarn. Now place the facing with the wrong side up over the collar and pin in place. Sew in. I used again straight stitch and elastic yarn. A tip: use knit sewing foot and a jersey or micro textile needle for better results. I also find that sewing rather slower prevents oopsies. Make a snip in the center of the V neckline and a few snips along the rounded sections. I always like trimming the seam a bit before I go on. Now fold the facing inside and secure with pins. A tip: for the V in the front, make marks for your line with a sewing crayon or a heat erasable pen to get the best results. Sew a line with straight stitch. I used again the elastic yarn. Pin the facing to the shoulder seam and secure it with a few stitches. Next, pin in the sleeves. For this polo, I made 3 folds on the shoulders with the help of the pass marks. Make sure the folds are equal on both sleeves before you sew them in. And the remaining steps are pretty much the same. Sew the sides, make the cuffs, check your work, hydrate again, and then finish the bottom edge. And then you're done. This polo is a lovely, elegant piece that looks great with pants, skirts, and shorts. I love wearing this one with my linen steampunk skirt. You'll find the sewing pattern for this skirt in my Etsy shop, link is in the video description. These polos are also great under V-neck sweaters, a great alternative to button-down shirts. You can play with different colors, prints, and types of fabric to create your own version, and you will have a lot of fun styling it with different pieces. I think even my husky approves, and as we all know, His Majesty's opinion is everything. Alright, we are all finished. I would say that my favorite designs are these two. I absolutely love this color scheme. And I love this black shirt with the mesh. because with the gothic skirt, it kind of gives me Wednesday Addams vibes. It reminds me of the prom dress she had, while it's still my own design. It's not a copy of her dress, but it's a very similar style and I love it. And anyway, the unicolored shirts are just very practical pieces. I hope that you guys enjoyed today's tutorial. If you have any questions, if you need help with the project, or if you got the sewing pattern and if you feel like you would need some special size, just message me on Etsy. I'll always figure something out. I love supporting you guys because what I want is that you can enjoy your sewing pattern and that you're having fun with the sewing projects. And that's gonna be it for today. Thank you all so much for watching. I wish you a wonderful day, happy sewing, and see you soon with my next sewing project. Bye!